be able to address you on the 5th edition of Inventica. What started off as a very small initiative on our part, not just to trigger the thought process within the organization and the younger members in the organization, soon turned out to be an event where we would be able to invite several people from within the community as well as the scientific community to be able to exchange some ideas here. I'll take a very short, a little introduction on what I feel I think we have been able to do in the past, and what, in my opinion, are the cases that we really need to look forward in the coming decade or so. I think I'm very clear that research needs to be, focusing on the future. It is, as what Kiran mentioned, I think a large part of the issue that we are facing today is around climate change. The larger or the more the effort that we actually put into research that talks about or mitigates impact of climate change, and we're very much on the cusp of another incident in terms of a very prolonged drought that can possibly be or so kind of give a death knell to sound a death knell for the industry or for even agriculture in particular. I think what can we do in terms of really looking at how do we address this issue around climate change. We are aware, and again taking from what Kiran mentioned in terms of costs, and I think one of the things that we have attempted to do but not been able to have done it very successfully is mechanization. And mechanization largely on account of the fact that workers are at a premium. We do not find trained people within the organization who would be able to do this, do some of the tasks which require knowledge, requires practice, etc. I think mechanization would be the ideal foil for that. But work on mechanization is something that I think we've been lacking as we've moved in the last couple of years. More and more that, and I think one of my colleagues is going to be speaking later, Amit, who heads the sales and marketing for Tata Coffee. And I think whatever visits that we have had or interactions that we have had with our buyers, the larger issue or the larger pushback has been around the indiscriminate use of chemicals and the kind of issues that people are facing in terms of particulate matter within the coffee that actually goes out for sale. What is it that we can actually do to be able to reduce the risks around this is, I think, another matter that we possibly need to really look at. Whether it is around integrated pest management, whether it is around disease management, etc. I think this is something that will need focus and not just pure lip service as we go forward. Like everything that we see around us, as the Honorable Prime Minister has always said, I think India is very clearly on a path of digitization, and I think we are way ahead as far as in certain sectors are concerned. But I think there is a vast scope, especially around agriculture, and when it comes to coffee, there's even a larger scope which is possible in terms of digitalization. We have in our small way done some work, which is largely around again, trying to see how we can best manage costs, but also understanding specifically in terms of how our plantations and each field, actually for that matter, is as far as profitability is concerned. For the people or for the benefit of the external audience here, just wanted to mention that in a couple of years back we actually did a very exhaustive on the field, feet on the ground, physical inventorization of every asset that we have. And when I talk about the assets, I'm talking about coffee, I'm talking about the trees, the fact, all data that needs to be available around soil, the shade, the nutrient status, the lumens that each of the fields have, etc. I think, if I'm not wrong, there were about 130 parameters that we have physically actually put into place or have data around. And these data points were actually then collated and put into a software that we now use to try and drive profitability. You may ask how. The fact is that we are hoping to look at a particular field and be able to say that these factors in the particular field are not optimal, or so the action out of this could be either you increase plantations of pepper, for example, or this particular field may not be even good for coffee, or several other it needs replanting, or there are the fact that this does not have adequate zinc or carbon, etc. It needs inputs as far as many of the other inputs that we may typically miss out. That could be the fallout of the data that we have. This is in a small way our work towards digitization. I think there is a small session here today which will talk about digitization, and very specifically around digitization that can be done with the smaller holders. And I think it's important that digitization doesn't get lost in large corporates. It needs to actually percolate down to smaller planters, and the fact that it makes coffee that much more efficient and cheaper to produce, thereby sustainability of coffee is guaranteed. So I think that's the other bit I would feel we would need to really work on. There are a lot of work that has actually happened around nanotechnology. I mean, I think the government of India now stipulates that we would need to really start looking at what we can do with, say, urea, for example, in terms of application. Do we have adequate data around it? I don't think so. I mean, not enough work has been actually done on coffee. That's my personal view. Are we going to be pushing a button that we have absolutely no idea what lies on the other side of the door? But is this something that we need to look at? Definitely we need to look at it. I mean, subsidies as things stand and as things will progress in the future will be stuff of the past. So we will need to look at that. I think a couple of other points which I had. One is around, of course, the product in itself that we make. There's been so much of work around quality that has happened, and there is centers of brilliance. There have been pockets which have actually done exceedingly well as far as quality is concerned, and there are still pockets that continue to be not devoid of quality, but unconscious of the fact that they have such great coffee available with them, but maybe this little bit that they need to do in terms of improving the quality they produce that can get them a higher price is something that we haven't really worked on. So is there a case there where we spend substantial amount of monies actually to look at enhancing quality within the coffee space? Is it around the variety of coffee that we grow? Is it the process that we do? Is it the machinery that we operate? Are there ways and means to challenge the status quo in terms of how a machine is designed, a pulper is designed, or how we actually look at dry milling, the process in itself? Have we applied enough, a focused attention to it? In my opinion, no. Last but not the least, I think it's important that we recognize that coffee in itself would not be something that would be sustainable going forward. We would, and as I've always believed, the biggest asset that we have is the land. And obviously we would need to make as much as what we can from every square inch of land that we have. On coffee in itself, of course, replanting needs to take place to ensure that yields consistently increase, thereby costs are kept under control. But are there ways and means to ensure we diversify from the same land? And as I mentioned earlier, with us, we've been able to really look at, because we have the data points with us, we have been able to really look at if that particular land that we have been growing coffee is actually sustainable, is it actually good enough for coffee? Or is there an alternate that we can actually put in? And that's based on facts and figures that we have because of all the data points that I mentioned. So diversification, the way we believe things would pan out in the next 4 or 5 years, I do feel that there is a case where we would need to look at alternate crops that can be grown with coffee. Obviously, I mean, Karnataka is coffee, and coffee will never go away. But how do we ensure that the farmer himself is adequately recompensed by way of whatever he's actually, the effort that he's actually putting in. So there's a very large canvas that we have, and I think there is a lot of work that we can do. There would be many organizations, and I'm glad that many organizations are here. They're going to be speaking during this conference. But I think it's best that we, as a community, get together, demand, not just, and we are very clear, we demand from the research and development department that these are our requirements. It actually started off as, this is how we started off. There was always a demand from him, and he needed to come back at the end of the year to tell us what he has been able to do. So I think in the same way, I think and pardon me if I come out as being too aggressive in this, but we need to demand from the government institutions also in terms of how do you make us, the planters, the smaller or the marginal farmers more profitable. So yeah, so that's my 2 bits. Thank you once again for being here in these numbers. Let's listen in to the various presentations that we have, and I wish the conference a great success. Thank you very much.
ನಾನು ನಿಮ್ಮ ಜಗದೀಶ್, ಕೊಡಗು ಧ್ವನಿ ಡಿಜಿಟಲ್ ಮೀಡಿಯಾದಿಂದ. ನಮ್ಮ ಚಾನಲನ್ನು ಸಬ್ಸ್ಕ್ರೈಬ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ಲೈಕ್ ಮಾಡಿ, ಶೇರ್ ಮಾಡಿ.